This is the final lecture from Chapter 30. And in this lecture, I want to take up the topic of enharmonically equivalent augmented triads. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, so here's a little diagram that I made. I'm using the same circular representation of the chromatic scale that I've used before, so that we're going up a chromatic scale when we go around the circle clockwise, and we're going down a chromatic scale when we go around the circle counterclockwise. And I've inscribed 4 equilateral triangles into the circle. And basically what I'm doing is I'm showing you 4 different augmented triads. But each one of these triangles could be understood as connecting the notes to make 3 different augmented triads. Let's take, for example, the pink triangle here. If we look at it starting on the G, then what we have is a G augmented triad. We have G, B, and D sharp. But if we look at it starting on this note and call it E flat, what we have is E flat, G, and B natural. And if we look at it on this note, and if we think about this note as C flat, then what we have is C flat, E flat, and G. Or another way that we could think of that last augmented triad is as a B, a D sharp, and an F double sharp. Remember when we covered augmented triads that the most common use for an augmented triad is as a 5 chord with a double leading tone. So if we think of this as a G, B, D sharp triad, that would be the 5 augmented in the key of C, and the B would lead up to C and the D sharp would lead up to E. Let me write that chord progression for you. Okay, so here's a 5 augmented triad leading to 1, and you have this double half-step motion. Now, let me show you how we could interpret that same augmented triad, G, B, D sharp, and thereby affect a modulation to a different key. I'm going to use 3-part harmony because it makes the voice leading a little bit easier to do. Okay, so I have a 1 chord, I have a 4/6 chord, and then a 5/6 chord, and then by moving the 5th of the chord up by half step, I turn this into a 5 augmented chord in first inversion. But now I'm going to reinterpret this chord, and I'm not going to make it resolve to a 1 chord. Instead, I'm going to think of this as an E flat, G, B natural chord. And in the key of A flat major, this would make it a 5 augmented triad in 6/4 position. So the raised scale degree 2 will go up, the leading tone will go up, and we resolve to a 1/6. Let me play that chord progression for you. We have a chord progression that establishes C major. And now we change it to an augmented triad. But now we resolve this way. And perhaps we eventually go here. And we've modulated to A flat major. Let me show you a different enharmonic interpretation. Okay, so again, we have a 5 augmented 6 chord. But now I'm going to resolve this as if it's this chord, B, D sharp, and F double sharp. So that chord in the key of E major is a root position 5 augmented triad. And that chord is going to resolve like this. So listen to this progression, and after I get to the one chord in E major, I will play a 4-5-1 just to bring it to a cadence. This enharmonic interpretation of a 5 augmented triad, allowing us to modulate by a major third up or a major third down, and possibly to modulate elsewhere if we think of the augmented triad as a secondary 5. But this modulatory technique will prove relevant to the song by Hugo Wolf, which is discussed in chapter 30. So spend a little bit of time with my handout, this handout. Study it, make sure that you understand how each one of those triangles could outline 3 different augmented triads. I've given you the summary down below. And study the relevant pages in your textbook. Let me know if you have any questions about this. Thank you.